Hello and welcome. I'm Rawia Alami and this is the Dailies, where we take a look at important news stories, reports, analyses and articles published in newspapers and media outlets across the world. France's government was thrown into chaos after Parliament rejected Prime Minister Bayrou's budget reforms, leading to his resignation, a major story that rippled through much of international media. The Middle East remained in focus, with Israel ordering sweeping evacuation for the entirety of Gaza City. Meanwhile, the top news out of America was Congress unveiling new Jeffrey Epstein estate documents, including the headline-grabbing birthday book with images and notes allegedly tied to Donald Trump and other famous names. Let's start from France, as the front pages of all French newspapers this morning were dominated by one story: the collapse of France's government after Prime Minister François Bayrou lost a no-confidence vote and resigned. Libération led today with a report describing how President Macron faces growing pressure from divided parties to quickly find a new leader amid mounting economic and political challenges. The piece highlights Bayrou's failed attempt to unite Parliament, sharp criticism from both left and right, and uncertainty over who will take charge next. The report underscores the paralysis gripping French politics as Macron juggles urgent budget deadlines, calls for compromise, and threats of further unrest. Ultimately, the piece paints a picture of a president struggling to restore stability as major issues test his leadership. Le Monde, on the other hand, published an explainer detailing the fallout and what happens next. The piece explains that following the collapse, France is led by a caretaker government with limited powers, while Macron decides whether to appoint a new prime minister or to dissolve parliament for new elections. The explainer notes the challenge of forming a stable coalition in a fragmented assembly, and both left and right parties are gearing up for renewed political battles. Le Monde also outlines how recent French governments have struggled under similar deadlock and highlights the uncertainty now facing one of Europe's largest economies as it searches for both leadership and direction. The crisis in France seems to have scared some in Britain. Matthew Lynn's article in The Telegraph warns that Britain could soon face the same financial troubles as France, with rising debt and heavy government spending creating political chaos. Lynn describes how France's leaders struggle to cut spending and raise taxes, but their debts keep getting worse and public anger also grows. He says Britain is following a similar path, with too few people in productive jobs, soaring welfare costs, and a government deficit that keeps rising. The article also highlights how tough choices are avoided in both countries and how any politician who tries to fix the problem risks being removed from office. Lynn ends by urging readers to learn from the crisis in France before it's too late. Across the Atlantic, the Washington Post, like many other American newspapers, reported on the House Oversight Committee's release of new documents from Jeffrey Epstein's estate, including the controversial birthday book featuring images and notes allegedly from high-profile friends such as Donald Trump. The report notes that while Democrats promoted the sketch as Trump's work, the White House denied its authenticity and called it political spin. The birthday book also contains redacted messages and images related to Epstein's scandals. Besides the book, also the committee released Epstein's will, Florida non-prosecution agreement and contracts, while continuing also to seek bank records and client lists. The piece highlights the ongoing partisan clash and public pressure for transparency, but lawmakers remain divided about the significance and source of the newly released evidence. The Wall Street Journal went even further on this story, publishing an exclusive with an interesting analysis and a close look at the now public Trump birthday letter. The report describes the letter's distinct signature, provocative sketch and playful text supposedly attributed to Donald Trump, noting stylistic similarities to previous handwritten letters and drawings by Trump, auctioned for charity. Also, while the White House and Trump have denied the letter's authenticity, calling it a forgery, the piece highlights expert observations that the letter's style and informal use of Donald also match past personal correspondence from the same era. The article underscores the ongoing debate also about the document's origin, with the letter now a focal point in both congressional investigations and renewed public controversy over Trump's past ties to Epstein. All Israeli newspapers reported today on the evacuation order issued by the IDF for the entirety of the Gaza City, while many others focused on the deadlock in peace negotiations to reach a hostage deal among rapid security developments on the grounds. The Times of Israel published an exclusive detailing a new hostage deal proposal from Israel that departs from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's strict public demands for ending the Gaza war. While Netanyahu previously insisted on full disarmament of Hamas, simultaneous release of all hostages, and no role for the Palestinian Authority, the latest plan envisions a 6-month process for peace, phased hostage releases, and a governing body to be determined later. The report also highlights pressure from the US and Arab mediators to get both sides to compromise, with President Trump's team involved in pushing for a ceasefire and prisoner exchanges. Israel's offer to is more flexible than before, but retains conditions on security control and potential intervention, while hesitating also to exclude the Palestinian Authority completely. The piece shows intense international diplomacy and Israel's willingness to adapt its approach, though a final agreement remains elusive. Michelle Goldberg wrote in the New York Times, examining the quiet collapse of faith in the two-state solution among veteran Middle East peace negotiators, focusing on Rob Malley and Hussein Agha's new book, Tomorrow is Yesterday. Despite decades of diplomacy, the authors argue the vision of an Israeli and Palestinian state side by side has become all but impossible, given settlement expansion, ongoing conflict, and shifting US priorities. Goldberg also notes Malley's grim conclusion, supporting the two-state solution is now more about political cover for the US and Europe than any credible path to peace. The article highlights a new realism among experts, recognizing growing annexation and division on the ground and urging fresh thinking, even as alternative outcomes remain deeply fraught and unpopular on both sides. And we'll stay with the New York Times, where we will end with a news analysis examining how Russia's drone and missile barrages in Ukraine are timed for maximum geopolitical impact. The latest attack Sunday night, the largest of the war, set Kiev's cabinet of ministers building ablaze and closely followed major European and American diplomatic meetings. The piece also highlights analysts' views that such massive assaults are not just military, but serve as blunt political messages, warning outside powers against deeper involvement and seeking also leverage in ongoing negotiations. Evidence shows Russia escalates attacks around key political events or Western contacts, using airstrikes as psychological and diplomatic tools. As peace talks stall, the analysis shows how Moscow's deadly bombardments also aim to test world leaders' resolve and influence the course of negotiations. That's it for today. Thanks for watching.